make sure you let me know.
Okay.
All right. Are we ready to get going there, Tammy?
Just give me 1 second. I've just started it. Uh-oh, I just lost my screen.
I think we're live, Tammy. I just got the notification from YouTube that we're up.
I've just lost my screen. That's why. Oh. I just lost my Zoom. I think I lost my screen. Oh. I don't know how I go back in.
We can see you, Tammy.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. We can hear you.
Okay, I just got to find out how I get back to the screen because,
Okay.
just bear with me 1 second. There we go. Good.
You're all set?
Yes, we're good. I'm just
All
going to
right.
mute myself.
All right. Well, welcome to everybody. We're doing this virtually again, and let's see how well we do. We've done pretty well other evenings. So one thing that I do have to say is that at 7:20, I have to leave for another appointment. And Craig has graciously offered and agreed to take the chair from me at that point. So let's get started. And the first item is Thomas is up to talk to us about the draft official plan and urban design guidelines as they relate to heritage. So Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma, and good evening to everybody here in the committee and those watching on YouTube. So my name is Thomas Wiersma, and I'm a planner for the Development Services Department here at the City of Barrie. And I'm going to be talking about the city's draft official plan and urban design guidelines. And it is my pleasure to do so on a day where remembering heritage is particularly important. So I'm just going to go ahead and just share my screen. It's going to be a PowerPoint presentation. Just 1 second. Okay, this is, yeah, you lose your screen when you try to share. Okay, screen 2. Now, Chair, can you just confirm that you can see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, I can see that. Yep.
Okay. So I'm just showing slide 1, and can you just confirm that you can now see slide 2?
Yep, we can see slide 2 as well.
Thank you very much. So this is just a brief outline of our presentation this evening. So I'm just going to quickly talk about our work that we've done to date. There's about 2 years of work that is, bundled into the official plan and the urban design guidelines. Then I'm going to give you a really high-level overview of the official plan and some of the key elements of urban design guidelines as well. And then I'm going to talk about three slides. I'm going to focus on what the OP does and what the urban design guidelines do for protecting cultural heritage in Barrie. And then we'll talk about where we're going in terms of next steps as staff, and where in terms of some next steps for the committee's work. And then we'll have hopefully a Q&A. I'm just seeing that there is something in the chat here. Hopefully, Tammy, you can take a look at that. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to slide number 3 and minimize you guys. There we go. So when we started this in 2018, we made a number of commitments, essentially to ourselves, to the city, and to the document. And we wanted to focus on developing an OP that is transformative, and it reflects the kind of city we want Barrie to be. We also committed to unparalleled community engagement with our internal stakeholders, such as this committee, and our external stakeholders, which is different groups, as well as the public at large. We also embrace the holistic approach to planning, which is which is reflected in clear policies that provide certainty and direction. And by holistic approach, we mean looking at things from all different angles. We also set clear goals for the growth goals for the next 20 years that reflect what Barrie wants and what we need to do in terms of meeting our obligations. And we also wanted to establish a high standard of urban design, which is reflected in official plan policies, as well as our citywide urban design guidelines. Excuse me. Okay, so so first of all, I just want to quickly talk about why an official plan is important. Well, for us, it's important because it governs land use within a municipality, all the land within the municipality. So it has a large impact, and it will impact the lives of our residents on it every day. So the first full draft of the official plan, as well as the urban design guidelines, were released for public review on September 24th, 2020. And we are currently about in the middle of a 90-day engagement or public review period. And during this period, we're meeting with our internal stakeholders, with our staff, with committees, and external stakeholders such as school boards, housing providers, and different community groups. So trying to describe what an OP is or what it does is quite difficult because it is a 200 some odd page document, and trying to boil it down to something that's easily digestible is quite tricky. So we use this image a lot because it tells a story of 1,000 words. And what this image really illustrates is our approach to writing the official plan. Meaning that the official plan is really centered around the notion that all matters related to city and community planning are interrelated and codependent. And the image also shows that the central to the OP, to the official plan, sorry, is the idea that we're planning for Barrie to be a more urban and complete city. And this idea of Barrie becoming more urban and more complete came through community consultation, as did several other key themes, such as planning for an attractive city, connected and mobile city, waterfront and green, prosperous city, cultural city, and a resilient city. Each of these themes has its own chapter in the official plan, and the policies in each of these chapters outlines how Barrie will be planned to be an attractive city, prosperous city, and so on. And each chapter is also accompanied with a map to illustrate how and where those policies apply. So there's a few notable features on the official plan that I want to sort of point out. I think I've only got three sort of high level things that I'd like to point out to the committee. Excuse me. Number one is, again, this notion of we're taking a holistic approach. And this is sort of enshrined in the motto, our slogan, one city, one vision, one plan. And it summarizes a sort of a comprehensive and integrated approach and planning philosophy that we try to enshrine in every policy of the official plan. It means that we're no longer focusing on specific areas of the city or meeting to specific targets or things like that. Rather, we're planning for, we're focusing on planning Barrie to be the city, the type of city we want. So we're looking at the whole city and trying to look out ahead to see what kind of community we want to live in and planning for that. The official plan, sorry, also focuses on breaking down segregation of uses and allowing for a mix of uses almost everywhere. So it's not, to put that in sort of a neighborhood context, right now a lot of Barrie has single use area. You just have like this residential area and you have this employment area. So we're trying to allow some mix of uses inside our inside our residential areas to allow some, neighborhood commercial where you can actually walk to the store. And this is to allow sort of the, I guess, the reduction in dependency on automobiles and planning for a healthy city and things like that. And another key element of the official plan is that it establishes a clear community structure. And that's actually map number 1 in our official plan. And this community structure is intended to lay the foundation of how and where Barrie will grow to the year 2041 and beyond. It is intended to provide that clarity and certainty to our residents, to businesses, to the development industry, in the development community, and will allow Barrie to grow into a place that feels more urbanized, yet more livable and attractive. So those are the sort of the 3 things that we really wanted to highlight, again, at a really high level. So that was the official plan. Now, so turning our attention to the urban design guidelines, again, it's a citywide document, and it works in conjunction with the official plan. So the official plan and the urban design guidelines recognize that the city is on the brink and is undergoing a significant transformation. And we want to take advantage of this transformation to make sure that the city of Barrie has high quality streetscapes, high quality public spaces, and buildings that established a modern yet energetic image of the city that both our community wants as well as our council would like to portray. And the first ever urban design guidelines, they're an implementation tool to the official plan. And they're underpinned by a series of design principles, and they're showed on the screen there for you. So design excellence. So what does that mean? It means prioritizing spaces for people, strengthening the role of public life and public spaces, elevating standards of sustainability and resilience, and creating and celebrating local culture and local place. In terms of human scale design, this means designing the city around the human experience. And this goes back to what I was saying about introducing more mixed use, because it allows for having more compact, more complete, more walkable, and more connected neighborhoods. And that allows cities to have that more vibrant public realm where you have activated streets, where there's goings on, and there's more eyes on the street as well. And we would like to bring that to more of the city. The urban design guidelines also focus on design that is sustainable, resilient, and adaptive. This means designing a city that can withstand climate volatility and bounce back after potentially catastrophic events. It also means designing a place where everybody can find a place to live in dignity, and where buildings can be repurposed over time to adapt to socioeconomic change. Another key tenet of the urban design guidelines is equity and inclusivity. This means really designing a city for everyone, where there's diversity of densities, uses, open spaces, as well as buildings along the spectrum of affordability. And also means making sure that we have accessibility and universal design implemented in all of our new builds. And more importantly for this committee is we have an element which speaks to contextual design. And that's making sure that we have compatibility between neighborhoods, that we have new and old neighborhoods, between areas of intensification versus historic areas, and things like that. So those are the sort of the core principles of the urban design guidelines. So I want to go back quickly to community structure. And just because I wanted to showcase, I think I missed a slide here, sorry, no, there we go. So going back to the community structure, I needed to highlight what the community structure is before I get into the heritage policy specifically. Now, the community structure is the city's blueprint for growth to the year 2041 and even after 2041, looking beyond. And the community structure identifies critical elements of Barrie for Barrie to become an urban and complete city. And these elements are our natural heritage system and open spaces, our employment areas, which are shown in purple, the urban growth center, which is primarily the downtown and the sort of the horseshoe around the downtown. We have major transit station areas, being one in Allendale and Barrie South Go. And we have a number of strategic growth areas, which are those, I guess, orange filled areas in the map. And you'll note that this is an important part. This is why I wanted to highlight this map, is that Allendale is one of our historic neighborhoods, of course. And we're actually proposing that we refine the boundaries of the urban growth center, and that Allendale be actually identified as being within a major transit station area and not as part of the urban growth center. And we did that intentionally, knowing that there is heritage, that we have historic buildings in Allendale, and we sort of have there's a tension between intensification and heritage preservation. So taking it out of the urban growth center and putting it into sort of a lower class of intensification area, because it still is an intensification area under the provincial policy framework. We're recognizing that we do have a heritage neighborhood, that we're trying to preserve the cultural heritage resources in that neighborhood, while at the same time facilitating some intensification to be in conformity with those provincial policies. So the urban growth center, the major transit station areas, and the strategic growth areas are the areas where you'll see the greatest mix of uses, the highest densities, and the greatest amount of change between now and 2041 and 51 and beyond. The white areas that you'll see in the city are those established neighborhoods where there likely is going to be some change and transition in terms of built form and tenure and things like that, but nothing, you're not going to see really tall buildings and high densities in these areas. And what we try to do in this community structure is to balance facilitating growth, focusing intensification to specific areas of the city, and protecting those established neighborhoods while allowing for some gentle intensification to occur. And I'll be frank, it is challenging to do that because we have provincial policies that say we have to accommodate for growth. We know that there's growth coming to Barrie, but yet we have these areas of the city where it's not really maybe not appropriate to push that growth there. So we have to focus that growth and direct it to certain areas of the city where we can service it and where it's appropriate to go. There's actually another thing I'd like to point out in terms of our community structure is that there's actually two intensification corridors that run through Allendale, which is Essa Road and Yonge Street, which connects through Burton. And there's also another intensification corridor being Bayfield and a part of Dunlop that run through two other historic neighborhoods to the north part of the city. And then Bradford is also an intensification corridor, but that runs basically the sort of the spine of the urban growth center, which again is in a historic neighborhood in itself. So in the intensification corridors, development is permitted up to 6 stories. And as I mentioned before, that Yonge Street intensification corridor, Bayfield, Bradford, and Essa corridors, they all run through historic neighborhoods. So we're looking for the committee to provide us with some feedback about which sections of these intensification corridors should perhaps have some reduced heights in order to protect those cultural heritage resources and that historic character of those neighborhoods. So now I'm going to get a little bit more into detail about how the official plan and the urban design guidelines work towards protecting cultural heritage resources. And there's sort of 2 streams here. One is through policy, one being the official plan, and number 2 being through urban design. So how do we do this through our official plan, through policy? Well, we've identified historic neighborhoods in map 8 of our official plan. And we've also introduced a new land use designation called the neighborhood area designation, which limits the scale of redevelopment. And the majority of the historic neighborhoods in the city have this neighborhood area designation. We also have a policy about protecting cultural heritage. We also have policies that protect archaeological resources, demolition control, and a designation under the Ontario Heritage Act. And I'll go through these in a little bit more detail. I'm just providing sort of a high-level overview right now. And the urban design guidelines, they actually have their own policies for design in historic neighborhoods. And they have they actually provide policy guidelines around the types of built form that we would like to see in historic neighborhoods. So it's getting down to quite a fine level of detail. We're going right down to the building and saying how the building should look in those specific areas. So let's talk about those policy highlights quickly. So firstly, as I mentioned earlier, and as the committee is aware, historic neighborhoods are identified in the official plan. So we've got Allendale, Brock Park, West Village, Queens Park, Downtown, the Grove, East End, and Kempenfeld. And at the last committee meeting, the committee asked me to look at where we could potentially identify Tollendale as another historic neighborhood. And you'll see in the screen here that I've highlighted it. It's on the right side of your screen with a yellow fill. Now, I didn't modify this map to actually provide a specific outline as to the extent of that neighborhood. So this is just sort of my view where it is, but we'll be looking for the committee to provide us with some direction in that regard. So what this map was intended to do is to tell the reader where the historic neighborhood policies apply. And the actual policies are in Chapter 8, Planning for a Cultural City. And I'll go through some of those policies right now. So in Section 841 of the official plan, draft official plan, of course, this section was written to provide direction on how we are proposing to strike the balance between facilitating intensification in the urban growth center and MTS and the major transit station areas while protecting cultural heritage resources in our historic neighborhoods. I think that I was looking at these policies, and they're this is sort of our first try at doing this. Again, it is challenging, like I mentioned before, and I think there's probably some opportunity for improved clarity in the text that is written as of today. And we'd be looking for the committee to provide us with comment and feedback in that regard. Specifically, what we'd like the committee to do is identify areas where we want to use that neighborhood area designation to sort of ensure that we maintain the heritage character of these historic neighborhoods. And conversely, where there is appropriate areas of intensification. So Section 841 also establishes development standards for when large development proposals are proposed, and what they need to consider, and how they need to consider how they're going to impact those historic neighborhoods. So the policies also speak to a heritage impact assessment being required. Looking at the policies, heritage impact assessments may not be the best tool, perhaps, in all situations. It may be when there is a designated cultural heritage resource or a mapped, for example, like a listed building or a designated building, but it might not be, if there isn't one in the area, do we need to do a heritage impact assessment for each one? Perhaps there is something else that we could do. And something that I had been thinking about and preparing to present to this committee was something like a historic neighborhood impact review, something that looks at more, not necessarily the specific individual cultural heritage resource, the building next door, but it looks at the impact of the proposal on the neighborhood. And we'll be looking for the committee to provide us with some feedback on how to best to do this. And what we also would need to know, like, what would historic neighborhood impact review entail? Would it look at things like removal of mature trees? Would we look at making sure that the type of materials are being used are appropriate? Because in some situations it's a bit of a two-edged sword. Whereas in some areas, where there's a new development coming in, they're proposing to use different types of materials. But if we put in the policies in the official plan that says you have to use materials that are in the neighborhood, well, perhaps we don't want them to do that. Perhaps in some areas we don't want perhaps there to be use of stucco, for example. It's not a great building material. So maybe we don't want to be that prescriptive. So again, that's something we'll be looking to have conversations with the committee on that regard. And also, at what level do we want to have these sort of historic neighborhood impact reviews done? Do we want them done for every minor variance? Do we want them to be done for every consent? Or do we want them to be done at sort of the zoning bylaw amendment level? So it's sort of establishing that threshold where such a review would be required. Because if we try to look at, or if we require it for every consent and every minor variance, that may be a little difficult for staff to do. It may be a bit onerous on the applicant as well. Now moving on, in section 841, we also talk about conformity with the urban design policies, which I will actually discuss in the next slide. So just to clarify, the official plan has a series of urban design policies in itself, and then we have urban design guideline document that is much more robust. We only have one chapter in the official plan that speaks to urban design, whereas the urban design guidelines, 200 some odd page document, which is a lot more detailed. Now I'm going to move on to section 842, which is the archaeological resources policies, which are fairly standard policy, fairly standard policy language. And it includes ability of commemoration of findings, which is something that the committee had talked about, I think a year ago. We were talking about I think Allendale train station, or I can't remember what we were talking about, but the committee had talked about, is there any way right now for us to, possibly take on some of the findings that come out from those archaeological sites, and possibly commemorate them on site, or in another building, or perhaps the Simcoe County Archive or something like that. So we have policies in the official plan that speak to that. So I thought I'd point that out because those are the committees, the committee had discussed it a while back. Another thing that the committee had talked about was bylaw for demolition control. So if we have a bylaw that is passed for demolition control, it would be a bylaw that would be enforced by the building department at when somebody applies for a demolition permit. And one policy that I wanted to point out is policy 843C, which specifically talks about the archiving of resources that cannot be preserved when on a site when there is redevelopment happening. And there's another policy 843 that speaks to the protection of mapped cultural heritage resources against neglect. So we want to make sure that buildings are not being purposefully left in a state of disrepair. So we're going to try to do our best to protect against that. Now let me move on to section 844 of the official plan. This section of the official plan really speaks to enabling the city to use the Ontario Heritage Act for the protection of cultural heritage resources by designating properties or just resources in general, as well as establishing districts. It doesn't go to say, these are the districts. Rather, it sort of lays out a plan for how to do that. So that's a very quick overview of a large chunk of the official plan. And as I stated earlier, we're looking for the committee to review these policies, and we're looking for your input so that we can, again, strike a balance between protecting cultural heritage resources while allowing some form of urban renewal and change as per council's approval of our policy directions, as well as provincial policy. Now I'm going to switch gears here. I'm just going to go quickly now and give you sort of highlights of the urban design policies as well, similar to what I did at the official plan. So in addition to protecting cultural heritage resources through policy, we also propose to protect cultural heritage resources by maintaining or establishing and maintaining a high standard of urban design. And we did this by creating urban design policies specifically for historic neighborhoods. And these policies provide direction on how new development is to be designed to make sure that it fits in with, fits with, as well as enriches our historic neighborhoods. And we do this by a number of things. We do this by regulating frontage, lot area, lot coverage, height and massing of buildings, and regulating or directing the use of materials and finishes. Right now, the policy speaks to using like materials, and that's a requirement. But again, as I mentioned before, in some cases, this could be a constraint, as we might not want to be using like resources in certain areas of the city. In addition, Section 3.5 of the Urban Design Guidelines speak to built form at a high level. So in general, it applies everywhere, providing direction on how buildings are to be designed so that they can sort of become the heritage homes in their own right, in 100 years from now. And there's also direction on how to incorporate townhouses in historic neighborhoods. And this is something that we've heard the committee talk about in the past. We've heard of that at Committee of Adjustment. Committee members have brought this up at this committee regarding things that are going to Committee of Adjustment. So what we wanted to do is provide direction on how to use different types of built forms appropriately, not in our historic neighborhoods, as well as in future historic neighborhoods. And the urban design guidelines are intended to work hand in glove, as they would say, with the land use designations, which are essentially the key to regulating built form. And the land use designations are in Chapter 2 of our official plan. And I've mentioned this land use designation before, being the neighborhood area designation, which actually limits where buildings of more than 3 stories can go. So as a standard, anything that's designated neighborhood area would be limited to 3 stories. And you can only exceed that height in certain areas of the city. For example, if you're on an intensification corridor, or if you're on an arterial or collector class road, and there's sort of a staging of height. So on those interior roads, let me pick one up, say Holgate, or Toronto, for example, or Steele. These are all historic streets in our historic neighborhoods that have lands that are designated neighborhood area on both sides of the street, where you'd essentially only be able to go up to 3 stories. So in that sense, we're trying to make sure that there's that context sensitive design, which is mentioned on the slide there. Excuse me. So moving beyond, going over the policies in terms of next steps for us. Well, we are currently in the middle of that 90-day consultation period, and staff are going to be reviewing comments that come in through this period and make edits as required to the official plan. We are looking at having an open house, which is a statutory milestone, in the spring of 2021. And staff will host this open house and present, possibly a revised series of documents to the public for review. And then we'll have a statutory public meeting. And this is where, again, the public will actually be able to present to, actually voice their opinion on the official plan, as well as submit comments in writing. And then we're planning on the adoption of the official plan in, late summer or early fall of 2021. And then once adopted, the official plan will actually go to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, which is our approval authority for approval. And that takes they give themselves 120 days. So that's sort of the ministerial review period. And in the background, as of today, yesterday, a month ago, we're actually beginning our preliminary zoning bylaw work to make sure that we have a new zoning bylaw that implements the official plan in effect, shortly after the official plan has been approved. Now, in terms of connecting the dots and summarizing the path in terms of engagement, our primary platform for engagement is building Barrie.ca. During the COVID era, we are unable to have face-to-face meetings, which we'd love to have. but we're constrained, unfortunately. So we've got polls regarding different topics on Building Barrie. The public and the committee members can go in and submit comments on each theme of the official plan. There's a Q&A function. So when questions go in, I actually monitor those, and I reply to those questions as they come in. And very soon, we will be posting videos that actually are answering some of those questions that come in. You know, those questions that are a little bit more complex and need a little bit more than a paragraph or so answer. We'll actually be posting videos of those on buildingbarrie.ca. And on World Town Planning Day, actually I think on Friday, we actually had an announcement that we are looking for the public to submit pictures for the official plan. We're looking for cover page images for the actual face of the official plan, as well as for each chapter. All of the information for that is on buildingbarrie.ca / official plan. And in terms of next steps for the committee, you know, as your Heritage Committee staff liaison, as well as somebody as a staff member, I would just recommend that the committee assign either one committee member, or there's a subcommittee formed that actually reviews the policies that I talked about today, and provides us some comments, you know, and feedback. And they have to be in writing, and it has to be done by December 22nd, 2020. So those are sort of statutory limitations in terms of timing and how they're submitted. So it's best to be tackled as a group. So it'll just be a little easier. And of course, I'm here to help the committee as well in terms of reviewing those policies. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Thomas. That was terrific. So let's open it up to questions. And I think the first one is Christine. Oh, yeah.
There, I had to unmute.
Yeah.
There you are.
If a developer comes in with a design that is not quite to what you've got in the official plan, you would probably go back and say, no, we want this, this, and this. If they go to the OMB, where do we stand?
Okay, so that's a great question. Through Chair to Christine, this official plan is actually proposing that before an applicant submits anything through a pre-consultation process, they actually meet with our staff and they submit something to us. It's sort of a pre-submission design review where we'd be looking at whether the proposal is within close to our urban design policies and our urban design standards. And then that goes through pre-consultation. And then once that goes through pre-consultation, it goes to, it goes through the public process. And your question is sort of at the tail end of that public process. If council approves a design or does not approve a design, that matter would go to, if the applicant does not agree with that decision, they may have the option or the right to appeal that decision. At that point, the matter would be at the hands of the LPAT. And I'm not entirely sure how much more I can speak to that, but our official plan does provide a lot of direction on urban design. The urban design guidelines provide even more direction. So we would hope that would be taken into consideration, knowing that the official plan has been approved by council, and that this is the intent of the city. And if something is going against that or does not fit into that, we'd hope that our perspective prevails. But once something is at the LPAT, it's sort of out of our hands.
And if I might just add on to that a little bit, that suggests that the City of Barrie official plan is a very important document, because the LPAT will normally feel itself bound by the policies of the official plan. So it looks at provincial policy, and then it looks at the city's policy, and if conformity with the city policy can be found, then it's fine. But if it does not conform to the city official plan, then it's got a problem. So that's why the city official plan policies are really, really important. If you read the urban design guidelines, however, those are not part of the Planning Act, if you will. And so the guidelines are guidelines, but they are not policy and they are not binding on the city or on the developer. Now we can try to make them as binding as possible, but you know, LPAT will not feel that they're bound by that. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. And I was just going to try to find this policy, but there is a policy in the official plan that speaks to where the urban design guidelines can be achieved, they shall be. You know, we're trying to give some weight to those urban design guidelines, you know, to say, you know, that it's not enough to just have regard for them. It's if you can implement them and if it's achievable without, you know, sacrificing other aspects of good urban design, then we're going to ask you to achieve those. So there is that policy to try to tie the OP, the official plan, with the urban design guidelines and tie them together. But you're correct, and it's not something that's passed under the Planning Act.
Okay, any more questions of Thomas on this subject? Councillor Harris.
Well,
Okay, I've got Councillor Harris first and then Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Thomas, it's great presentation and, you know, obviously an exciting time and a big document. I was just curious, and, you know, we have obviously a variety of heritage areas which are important, and in Ward 8, we have significant ones as mentioned in your presentation, speaking of Allendale. And one of the key features of Allendale is the you know, previous, but it's kind of the reducing, but a commercial area that used to be, you know, of interest, and certainly as over the years been lost. There's interest, obviously, in commercial redevelopment along ESSA, and certainly it's very close to the residential heritage areas as well. How will the plan kind of address that, and we all want to see the revitalization of Allendale, both that commercial corridor, but manage and mitigate the impact such that it would have on the residential? How would that be addressed? I hope that's a clear enough question. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harrison, through the chair. That's an excellent question, and something we have been talking about for 2 years as to really how we can do this. And really the key implementing tool of the official plan are the land use designations. I could share my screen here really quickly if that's okay. And just one moment, screen 2 and share. There we go. So, oh, I lost everybody. 1 second. Where did everybody go? Okay. Can everybody see the map, the PDF map? What is happening? Hello?
Yes,
I can see the map.
No problem.
You can see the map? Okay, sorry. So what you're looking at here is of course, Allendale. You've got ESSA, and you've got Burton, which connects to Young here. So this sort of darker beige or burnt orange, whatever you want to call it, is actually the medium density designation. And the medium density designation is found in chapter 2 of our official plan, and it has a number of permitted uses such as residential, it has home occupation, community facilities, commercial, retail, institutional, major office. So again, basically what I'm trying to highlight, it has a wide range of uses. And it also has in section 2622, we speak to the development standards of the medium density designation, and it does permit mid-rise buildings in this area. So that's basically all along here, all along ESSA Road here in this entire area is medium density. So it does what it does, the official plan, it sets out the standard that this is intended to be the intensification area of Allendale, which is between Essa and Tiffin. So I think this is the commercial triangle you were referring to. And there's also lands that front onto Essa that are part of that medium density as well. And a component on Gowan. Yes, Gowan, that's right, it's labeled right there. That are labeled, that are proposed to be designated medium density. And the remainder, sort of the interior of Allendale, is proposed to be neighborhood area, which is this yellow fill. Again, this is draft, and we're looking for the committee to comment on where one designation is more appropriate than another, and help justify that. But this land use designation would not be essentially a hindrance to any sort of intensification. In fact, it would likely facilitate some intensification. But for example, this parcel right here, I'm just going to pick on it really briefly. I'm not getting a zoom for some reason. Let me just zoom in quickly. There we go. Oh, that's not working. Sorry. Let's try this again. There we go. So this parcel here, you'll note, this medium density, which permits a mid-rise building, and then you have neighborhood area, which is sort of ground-related low-rise buildings. There's policies in the official plan that say that there has to be an appropriate transition between the ground-related low-rise buildings and the mid-rise buildings here, and it's very detailed. So I don't think there's anything in here that would prohibit or limit the amount of commercial revitalization of this area. If anything, the land use designation that's proposed in this area is inherently mixed use and requires an element of non-residential as well as residential. So I hope that answers your question, Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Maybe just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and maybe it's more of a comment. And for those of us who had the pleasure of experiencing Allendale in years past, interestingly, we talk about having a complete city, and I think Allendale once upon a time was a complete community with banks and all kinds of different things and grocery stores. So hopefully we'll see a return to the past with Allendale and recognizing the heritage, but also which included a robust little commercial area that serviced the residents. So lots to be hopeful for with the plan and the future for Allendale and the respective heritage, but also our heritage of having its own little commercial area and its own little downtown. So thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Now I have to leave, and Craig will take the chair, and Kathy is next. So have a great meeting, and one of the things that we'll have to do is form a little subcommittee or so to respond to this official plan. I'm happy to be a resource to that, but I will let the committee do its thing. When I leave, I won't have any input into it. So anyway, have a great evening, have a great meeting, and I'll see you later.
Okay, so can I ask my questions now?
I'm not hearing you, Craig. Sorry for some reason.
Craig's on mute.
Unfortunately, not yet, Craig. You have a microphone plugged in, or? It looks like he might be switching to a different platform. I mean, in the meantime, as wearing two hats here, sort of as a answer of questions, as well as the committee staff liaison, I think, Kathy, if you want, you can probably just ask that question while Craig gets.
Okay, so I have actually sort of a number of comments, and I was, impressed with what I read, and I think that there's been a lot of good work done in the documentation so far, and I can see that, we have some work to do to help identify areas. The mid-rise, definition of mid-rise, can you just confirm, is that up to 6 stories?
Sorry, was that, did you ask, just want to ask something, anything else?
What was the mid-rise is up to 6 stories? Is that the definition of mid-rise?
So that's a good question, Kathy, because I don't think we actually have a definition of mid-rise per se. Rather, each land use designation in the official plan has a series of development standards where we prescribe minimum building heights. So in section 2622, policy policy J, we actually state that buildings shall have a minimum height of 4 stories. And buildings shall have a maximum height of 12. So you can get actually different built forms in that height. You can get townhouses that go up to 4 stories if you have stacked townhouses.
Right.
May not necessarily be a mid-rise, whereas mid-rise for me would probably start at 6, possibly at 8. You know, it depends on their interpretation. And we didn't want to be too prescriptive. We just said this is the minimum and this is the maximum.
Right.
And that's what's permitted.
Then in Allendale specifically, you mentioned that you are removing the area out of the urban growth center. Did I get that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but it is where there's a major transit hub. So when we're looking at developing around a major transit hub in terms of intensification, what are we looking at in terms of how tall buildings could be or how high, like what would be allowed there?
Thanks, Kathy. Excellent question again. So the community structure map is intended to communicate to council, to the public, to the committee, where we're intending to see growth happening, where we're seeing tall buildings. So where you're going to see that medium density designation and where you're going to see that high density designation. On the map that I just had up on the screen, we actually don't have any high density designated lands inside the historic neighborhood of Allendale. Rather, the highest form is actually the medium density. And the medium density designation, as well as the neighborhood area designation, they are the ones that limit height. So we don't have a policy that says in the major transit station area of Allendale, buildings shall be of height of this, XYZ. We don't have a policy that says that. Height of buildings is prescribed by the land use designation. So when you look at the map 2 specifically, and you see yellow, all of the yellow lands, the majority of that is maximum of 3 stories.
Okay.
And the only area where you can get more height would be along Burton Avenue, which is part of the Yonge Street corridor, and Essa Road. And right now, as the policy reads today, it would say that all the lands that front onto those streets can go up to 6 stories.
Right.
So that's what I was saying to the committee, that we're looking for the committee to give us feedback as to perhaps which portions of ESSA may not where it may not be appropriate to have 6 stories, and where it may be, and where we could possibly go higher and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, you're wondering about height, it's all in the land use designation. That's where the key policies are.
Is there in this document, should we be, or is there anywhere where it talks about repurposing buildings?
Yes, so I think in our Resilient City chapter, which I believe is chapter 7, we talk about adaptive reuse, reusing buildings, as well as in chapter 8 in the Cultural City chapter, we also talk about adaptive reuse of buildings. And it's not something that we say that must be done. It is something that is encouraged. But it's unless you have a district, heritage district under the Ontario Heritage Act, where the reuse of buildings is prescribed, an official plan, in my experience, doesn't usually say you shall reuse buildings. It's sort of in our design guidelines, it speaks to incorporating heritage buildings into design and making them a functional component of the design and things like that. And we argue for that, but it's not a requirement. It's thou shalt. It's not written.
Then I don't know whether it's appropriate to ask this question at this point, but I'm going to. Where we have a designated building currently, and potentially there is a high rise going up beside it, what protections are in place, or is there somewhere in policy protections are in place to make sure that that building is protected from damage? Or I think you know what I'm talking about, Thomas.
So yes, so we do have a section in our official plan that talks about protecting mapped and designated cultural heritage resources in general. And so it's policy 8.4D, and it speaks to a development on and site alteration on lands containing cultural heritage resources, such as those identified on the Municipal Heritage Register or on map 8 of the official plan, shall not be permitted until it has been demonstrated that the heritage attributes can be conserved through a heritage impact assessment, which is fairly standard terminology, but it says that it shall not be permitted until it has been demonstrated that the heritage attributes can be conserved through. So that's the standard right there, is that you have to do a heritage impact assessment, and it has to be demonstrated that the heritage attributes can be conserved. So I think that's the question you're getting at, or the policy you're getting at, I'm sorry.
And can I ask another question on human scale? And this comes up a lot, I think, especially with the taller buildings and where they're trying to do stepping back and transition in human scale. And human scale, I think, is I don't know how to describe it, but human scale to me is not when you do podiums for the taller buildings that might be maybe 8 stories. I'm going to say 6 to 8 stories. That's not really human scale. Human scale to me is something that might be like 2 stories. So is there definition somewhere about actual human scale? Like what does that mean? Because often when deputations are done, people talk about tall buildings being too tall, and we hear that planning has taken into consideration everything that was said at public meetings and at deputations, and move forward with things that really, to the majority of public, I would say, aren't really human scale. So I don't.
Through Vice Chair, I guess through you, Craig. Kathy, so that's a very good question again. We actually have a number of policies that speak to human scale design. So I've got the official plan policies in front of me, but I'm going to try to find the ones in the urban design guidelines as well. So just for your reference and everybody else who's watching, human scale is designed in section 323 of the official plan. And we actually talk about human scale built form. And it talks about what we mean when we say, we as in City of Barrie staff, what we say for human scale built form. So we talk about it sort of generally, and then we actually provide some fairly prescriptive standards of what we mean by human scale design in section 332 of the official plan. And there are, I would say, 40 points that speak to what is good human scale design. And I would encourage the committee, as well as anybody else watching, to review these points and provide us comments, because right now what's proposed is written by staff is what we think, and what we've received through public consultation when we're writing the official plan. So we're looking for, to do sort of a co-authorship where the community provides us with feedback. So we define human scale for Barrie, because human scale may be different in Toronto, maybe different in Guelph, maybe different. So what does it mean for us in Barrie? And we have the opportunity right now to do that through the official plan. And I know that the urban design guidelines also talk about, I believe in the general ground-oriented built form. Sorry, it's just a large document, sorry. Context-sensitive design for built heritage is in section 2.6 of the urban design guidelines. But I'm just looking at the table of contents. We don't have a section that speaks to human scale. And I know if staff are watching, they're probably saying, Tom, it's in this section, but I can't find it right now. But I know that it is in the urban design guidelines that we do speak to that as well. So
can you hear me now, Thomas?
Yes, I can, Craig, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. So one of the things that we can do, we have the questions we have, I guess Councillor Rietma was suggesting that we organize a subcommittee where we can come up with questions, where we can write these questions to you, and then and our suggestions of what we think about the OP. So does anyone Councillor Rietma was suggesting that he would like to be involved with that, and obviously his skill set, that sounds good to me. So is there anyone else that would like to be involved in that subcommittee?
I would, of course.
Okay, Kathy?
Sarah? Sorry, I don't have a ton of time to devote to it, but I would like to offer whatever help we can do.
Yeah, again, you've got those skill sets that would be great, I think, for that committee.
I would too, Craig, if you need some help.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be excellent. Councillor Harris? Oh, sorry, Jim, you're muted.
I double clicked. I just saw 4 really good nominees, so I won't nominate myself. But there will be opportunity for the group will come back to the committee as a whole for all of us to give feedback. So that just for all the members, we know we're all going to have a chance, but we've got a great working group as
and we've got people with those, with those skill sets. That's great.
Okay, so I will not volunteer, but I'm grateful for those who have. So thank you, everybody.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Anyone else that wants to make a comment about that? Yep, Kathy?
This is really more of a question, Thomas, to you, I guess. So stakeholder meetings, like, so for instance, like if the Allendale Neighborhood Association group wanted to be a part of this, and have, like a working group, could they be a part of that? Or if Sue Murdoch wanted to be a part of a working group, could she be a part of the working group?
So
because those, like in Sue's case, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but if she were interested in just volunteering some of her time to one or two sessions for an hour and just review stuff with us, and because she has more expertise and knowledge than we do.
Through you, Craig, Kathy, I think the public, Allendale Neighborhood Association, any other community groups out there can submit comments directly to us. We don't necessarily have to have a face-to-face or a meeting like that for us to consider your comments. Any comments that come in through writing, we'll take, we're going to consider seriously, of course. But in terms of having one-on-one meetings between staff and the group, I don't know if that's something that's possible or not. So I'd have to just go back to my management team and bring that to them, and they'll make that decision.
Good,
thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Anyone else with any comments or suggestions? Excellent. Okay. So I guess the next thing we have is the Heritage 2.1. The Heritage. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry?
I got my hand up a little late. Sorry about that. Just to Kat's point about bringing other people in. my question is sort of like, I thought that, Tom, you were looking for comments sort of as part of the committee. So if we bring in other people, do we have to then say this is from outside and this is from inside, or well, how would that work? Sorry.
I guess through Vice Chair Craig. You know what? I think if you have conversations with your colleagues, you know, who are professionals in your field, and you know, you agree with that comment and you agree with that opinion, and you choose to submit that in writing, that's up to you and the subcommittee to do that. You don't have to identify that it came from an individual that it's outside of the committees. Is, you know, if you put it on paper and you're quote unquote citing under the dotted line, it would suggest to me that that is your opinion or an opinion that you agree with. So you know, go ahead and do that if you're having those conversations. The letter would come from you know, the four committee members essentially.
I was just going to suggest, was there a sort of a time that we'd like to have this by, obviously by our next meeting, but maybe can organize in the next week or two to sort of have a Zoom meeting together and maybe come up with some ideas together. Would that be a good idea? Maybe we can, between the four members, we can organize that. Okay. Okay, anyone else with any suggestions or comments? Okay, so I guess we're going to move to 2.1 about the heritage plaque order. So Thomas, did you want to start with that, or?
Sure. Thank you, Craig. I'll just take one hat off and put another hat on. So the plaque order, as of right now, so I've got a number of you have sent me emails the last week or so, and I've got a table tracking sort of who's replied, who's not replied, and what where we're at. And you know, I'll just share that quickly rather than talking about it. So what you're seeing here should be a Word document, which basically just shows the address of the property and where we are with it. So top down, 105 Toronto, I have not heard yet. 72 High Street, I have not heard yet, but I reached out to the property owner. Hopefully we'll hear from them shortly. 16 to 18 Mary was declined, which is why they're in red. 30 Mary, I think they already have a plaque, so this plaque is not required. 70, oh, I think that's supposed to be 70 to 72 Dunlop. I think we're still awaiting reply, hence they're in yellow. 123 Dunlop has confirmed. 37 Dunlop, we know, sorry, Mulcaster, we know that they need one. That's of course the McLaren Art Center. So I'm going to be talking to the appropriate city department to see if we can get the plaque installed on that city-owned building. I have not heard about 158 Dunlop or 147 Rodney. I think if she's watching, 147 Rodney will get in touch and let me know. And 142 Collingwood, I did see an email to that regard. I think they did say that they are interested in that plaque. And then 268 Codrington is crossed off because they have a plaque. 147 has a plaque. 17 Peel has a plaque. And 62 Shirley, I don't think they have a plaque, but I will be contacting them to confirm that. So possibly for at least two confirmed. And that's it for me.
You can't see my hand either.
Yeah.
I have contact information for 16 Mary, and it could be in some of your archives there. It's Gary French is the owner. So.
I think David has contacted that property owner, and I believe they declined.
No, that was me.
Okay, my apologies.
Kathy?
So Thomas, 158 Dunlop Street has a plaque. 47 Rodney Street has a plaque. 142 Collingwood, is that on the list? I'm sorry, the list isn't in front of us again.
Yes, it is, yes.
Yeah, they were going to reach out to, that house was just sold. And they are probably in the process as we speak of moving in. but I have her contact information and I can provide that if you want to. I mean, they are very happy to accept it, but she might not have had time to send you a note yet. I can give you her phone number and information.
Yes, please.
later.
I can follow up.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to add about that? So the total number we have is between sort of 4 to 7, around there.
Yeah.
So if those are the designated ones, so I guess if we're going to make any more, then I guess we could do the ones that are going to be listed next. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So does Thomas, do you think we'll have enough money left to do some of those, or do we wait until next year?
I would recommend for us to submit the order for the designated properties first, and get that firmed up, because I believe they're $600 a plaque, plus an install, I believe, of $70 a piece, plus tax. It's quite a bit of money. So if we do get 4, even 5 of them, that's going to reach the limit of what the committee had approved to spend for this year. So if we can get all of the ones for the designated ones, get that list complete, we can definitely turn our attention to listed buildings next year.
Excellent. Thank you. Good. Did anyone, Kathy, go ahead.
Sorry. Thomas, I sent you a picture today of the listed plaque just tonight in your email, because I'm not sure everybody on the committee has seen what it actually looks like or remembers.
Okay, Kathy, yeah, I got the picture you sent me. So that is actually the picture of the designated building. That's the brass round plaque that says Heritage Barrie.
No.
Yes, that is the one you, or maybe you didn't attach the right one, but that was the one that we.
No, not that one. Not the one David is showing. It sort of looks like gray. It's like gray color.
So I think what you sent me is actually the cast, the bronze stamp that they would push into.
Oh, okay. So I thought that was the actual, because I was looking at it going, I'm sorry, but that's not really very attractive. And it's hard to, like, if it was going to go onto a listed building, you can't really see it. So that's why I just wanted to show the picture, because people hadn't seen it, but that's not actually it, is what you're saying.
No, we don't have a picture of the listed one. We actually don't have one created yet. I think Craig, this time last year almost, you had brought in a bunch of samples, and the committee had approved to go with the aluminum square or aluminum rectangle for the listed properties. We'll have to confirm that when we start doing this for listed properties next year, to refresh the committee's memory as well as my own, if I'm honest.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions about that? That's great. Awesome. So we're going to have some more plaques up and get that and use our funds for that, which is fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for everyone for going out to and meeting the owners and asking them. I think that's awesome. So, okay, we're on 2.2, the Heritage Awards. Thomas, would you like to update us on that?
I sure can, Vice Chair. So there has been some discussion. I think the committee has been conversing by email, and I think the consensus is that the committee would like to stay with the image, with the picture, but with some sort of a description or something like that. Also making the picture more, to use those sort of funky filters, sort of the Instagram filters, and we can definitely do that. I think that gives the photographer some creative license to do that. And I don't know where the committee stood. There's been some back and forth. So the picture's sort of still the route we want to go, but we want to make it more artsy. We'll still get them framed. We'll still get it to say Heritage Barrie, or Heritage Award 2020 in a little box underneath the image. But the committee was also talking about a bit of a plaque or something, or of an inscription. I didn't know if the committee had meant something that would hang under the picture or be inset inside the image, inside the picture frame or something like that, or am I misunderstanding what everybody was talking about?
Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Through you to Thomas, it's one of those things where if we're commissioning someone to take a picture and frame it, maybe we could defer to their artistic thoughts around what would look best with the image that they've made. Just instead of us trying to figure it out, maybe that's the place to go to use the artist or the photographer with that plaquing type of styling.
Yes, go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So the photographer is not the same person who frames the images. We have a framer who does that, and she usually does a good job in terms of picking the right colors, the background, or the different mats that go behind the or in front of the image. She had the idea of cutting it out and doing sort of a little inscription in there for Heritage Barrie Award 2019. So I think we would need to provide them with a little bit more direction. I mean, if we're looking to provide this award, end of December-ish, we don't probably have a whole lot of time to explore a large range of options. But if we're okay with presenting that award in January, we might have a little bit more time to deliberate. But I don't think the photographer we're currently using, I don't think they do that. They don't do like inscribing. They don't like burn it into the wood or anything like that. They're pretty much just strictly a photographer.
Maybe just follow up. Yeah. I don't. So it makes sense. It would probably be in this case, the framer. So they would need, what would they need? The language through you, Mr. Vice Chair, the language. So would it be, their address and Heritage Award winner 2020? Would that suffice? Like, how much do you put there? I don't know what others have thoughts on that, but that would be my thought. It's simple, but says they're an award winner and their address.
I was just going to say, I think before we had what the award was for. So a heritage home or community commercial building or institutional award winner for the year, and with the address. I think that's great, or the church or whatever we decided. Anyone else have any comments about that? Oh, yes, go ahead, Sarah.
I just have a comment sort of generally about the photo, I think, if that's an okay topic to move on to. I know in our sort of emails we discussed doing different effects and whatnot with it. I would just maybe suggest that we don't give like carte blanche to the photographer, in that we get something that is pop art and, like is a very modern sort of thing. We are heritage and it should perhaps maybe look heritage. If we were in culture, you could maybe get a little bit more pop arty and that sort of thing. But if we were heritage, so if we maybe wanted to stay in that neighborhood, if anybody agrees, anything.
Anyone else have a comment? Oops.
Yeah, it's Deb. Sorry, you can't see my hand.
Yeah, sorry, Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, those the samples that I sent out a week or so ago, I think somebody had mentioned what would if we could do like a watercolor of the house. So one of those effects that the photographer had given us a sample of, I think with the Queen's Hotel, was an actual watercolor type treatment. So wasn't too far funky, but still you would recognize the building. So there is that option as well.
Did anyone else has a comment about? Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just gonna mention, I think one of the really funky ones in those samples that Deb sent was one for flying monkeys, which although it's a heritage building, their business is I think their thing is normal is weird or weird is normal, right? So that particular sample was good for that building, but that's not one of the, you know what I mean? Like, it's not one of the buildings that's getting an award this
Right.
year, but I mean, I thought that was a good sample for that particular business.
Yeah, awesome, good. Anyone else comment? So Thomas, when do we have to have this decided by? Now I noticed there's perhaps not as many awards this year, so that's another thing too. Because there's less, we can maybe, you know, do a little bit more of a little spend on it rather than because there's less awards and with COVID and everything. So when would you like us to sort of have this all wrapped up for you?
Through you, Vice Chair, we need a minimum of a month. Like today's November 11th. So if we're looking to present these awards, and I'm not entirely sure if we're going to do it through a city council meeting. Like, I'm not entirely sure the platform of doing this, because nobody can actually go there and receive it. So it would, you know, we probably want to note it at a council meeting, but I would probably just go and deliver this, you know, or maybe we talked about a ward councillor going and delivering it. So perhaps we organize with a councillor in each ward. So I think they're all in one ward. So either way. So to get it all done, I wanted to get the photographer to go out there as soon as possible. And before I do that, I want to get him to provide me with some samples of filters. You know, the watercolor filter. You know, I'm going to tell him use an old timey filter. Maybe that's sort of like that, sort of like a sepia or a cyan. I can't remember the correct wording, where it's sort of dark on the outside but yellowish and white, and it looks like a black and white movie. So we'll get him to see if he can send me some of those, and I'd circulate that to the committee. And if we can get a consensus, you know, by this time next week, that would be ideal, because he can go out there and take pictures of good weather, and the framer needs about a week or so to get that in place. So as soon as possible.
Awesome. Kathy?
Sorry, I just lost it. Oh, what I was going to say is at a previous council meeting, and maybe Jim, you can comment on this. I think there was a presentation of, maybe it was just a certificate for someone, and I think it was Natalie Harris that did it. It was thanking someone for a contribution to something they did, and I can't remember exactly what it was. And I think all she did was hold it up so that the public that was watching could actually see. And I don't know if that's something that we could do at a council meeting, and then have it delivered after.
Jim, did you want to say, Councillor Harris, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, happy to. Kathy, great idea. Absolutely, yes. I think we can do that as part of our Heritage Committee, and certainly then the presentation or the, you know, giving it to the individuals. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's one more date, but having the ward councillor invited to participate with Thomas in dropping off, or somebody from the Heritage Committee as well. A small group, obviously, but dropping off, that's a great idea. So yeah, I like your idea. Definitely, we could make a point of putting it on council agenda and presenting and showing.
Yeah, exactly. And I was hoping that we can hopefully our chair can mention the awards at the council meeting, so everyone can see it on Rogers too. Awesome. Anyone else with a comment? Yes, go ahead, Thomas.
I think Christine was ahead of me there.
Oh, sorry, Christine, I didn't see you. Sorry. Hey, there you are.
Why is there such a rush? Why can't we wait until January? What I was thinking is, if we have these pictures done, it would be nice for them to be shown at a council meeting, and depending on which ward it is, the individual councillor for that ward can say, I will be delivering these to the recipients. So in other words, at a council meeting, we say Heritage Awards are, these are the winners, and Jim, who's ever in your award, you would be holding the plaque or the picture and saying, I'll be delivering this. Ward 2, whatever. And instead of rushing it, why not put it through until January?
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
I think that's up to the committee. If we want to deliver the 2020 awards in January 2021, I don't know if anybody would be offended. And it would be up to the committee if we want to go through and, as we normally do, is do a PowerPoint presentation where the chair or another committee member actually does the presentation at council. And you can hold up those images or show up the actual pictures in the frame. Or what we could do is, if we do a little bit later, say in January, we could actually have a picture of the councillor in the PowerPoint presentation delivering the picture, or the recipient holding it, you know, in front of their house type thing. So it's just up to how the committee wants to proceed.
Okay, does anyone have a comment on that? That's a great suggestion, I think. As to someone who's going to deliver it, Councillor Harris, do you have any comment about that?
Well, I would just say this is great. Let's get those pictures, and then we can sort out how we want to share them and proudly display them. But yeah, first things first, let's get those pictures, and we'll definitely make a good use of the opportunity to share them. I think it's an exciting idea, and no shortage of opportunities to promote this and the award winners after we get pictures in our hands.
Excellent. Awesome. So I guess the thing is if we can get those pictures, samples, as soon as possible, we can sort of look and say which one as a committee we think is best, and for the award winners, and then get that organized, and then in January we can hopefully get them the pictures at council and delivered. How's everyone with that? Is everyone okay with that? Yes, Kathy?
I just have a question about, and Jim, maybe you can answer this. Is January when you typically are working on budget? Yeah. So is that and some of those meetings are like, is the whole council meeting just budget? Or
it's not necessarily, but I don't think that we'd be asking for a lot of time. And quite frankly, a positive addition to it would be a bad thing. If the budget gets too grueling, council might like to celebrate some heritage. But I'm certainly between the clerk. We could figure what is the best date. I mean, I think first and foremost, if we get these pictures, we have them in our hands, we understand when we can then put them on the agenda, I think is, you know, first order of business. And then, yeah, we're definitely going to leverage this opportunity to recognize our award winners and show the work of heritage. So I'm not worried. I think we'll make a time that works for sure.
Sarah, did you want to say something?
I just had a question. Is Heritage Week in February? Would it be too much of a stretch to just push it to February, and as part of a Heritage Week spiel, whatever, we say here's the winners of the awards, rather than maybe trying to squeeze it into a jam-packed January?
That's another great point. Good. Tammy, did you have something to say?
Just a question. Did you want the photographs to come out of the 2020 budget expenditure?
I would say yes.
So we'll need it in before the end of the year.
So we can have all that. It's just when do we give it? When do we do it in council? So.
So we'll just have to approve an expenditure at the next meeting, if that's the case, in December.
Thomas, did you have something to say?
I think, can we do that this meeting, Tammy? Because I think, yes, we want to get the pictures and we want to get the awards paid for in this calendar year. And it sounds like the committee is leaning towards doing presenting of the award, whichever way we do that in 2021, you know, either in January or February. So if the committee wants to pass, Tammy, I don't know if it's a motion or if it's.
No, we just need to note it in the minutes.
Okay.
So if you have an idea what the expenditure is, we can just, how much do you think it's going to be? Just kind of an estimate.
I think the pictures, taking the pictures and getting them printed, I think it's about $100 per image. Then it might be a little bit more if we go with sort of an artistic treatment. So let's say $200 an image. I mean, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
So that's three. That's $600 for the pictures, and I think the actual framing, they're they're custom frames. They're handmade custom frames, so they're fancy and they're well made. So I think they're on $350 a piece for those picture frames. So say $1,000 for framing or so, and then another $600 or so in that range.
So
So
did
maybe
you want it
$2,000. Yeah.
Or like even more than that, like a little bit more just in case? Like,
yeah, I mean, perhaps, if we, up to
Up to.
2,500, but that's it.
yeah.
I think
So-
that'd be more than enough.
So we don't have to pass a motion. We can just say that is everyone supportive of putting that in our budget right now? Is everyone okay with that? Awesome. That's great. That was awesome. Thumbs up. I like it. It's our time to shine, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thomas, that said replacement award for 134 Blake Street.
What's that?
That's correct. Yeah. So I think a family member of the property owner of 134 Blake Street said that the award got damaged. I think it fell or broke and it got wet. I'm not entirely sure, but it essentially is ruined. And they are asking if the committee will replace the award. The property owner is very fond and very proud of that award, and it got ruined. So I guess we would have to note it in the minutes that the committee would be okay with paying for a replacement award for 134 Blake Street. And it would be in the traditional style, I guess, in the same sort of style that was done before.
Does anyone have a comment about that? Kathy?
Is that, Thomas, was that for, that house isn't designated? Is it for a listed or a designation award? Plaque, sorry.
That's a good question, Kathy. I don't.
I have the walking tour guide in front of me, and it doesn't show, or it doesn't say in the guide that it's designated. So I don't know whether it is. So
No, it's not.
it's not designated. So it would be a list, one that would be listed.
I don't know if we approached them about listing. Maybe that would be an incentive for a new photo. But it's certainly worth listing that home.
Well,
So
the Vice Chair.
Yeah, sorry, Thomas. Did you have something to say? Yeah.
I was just going to say that if the committee does approve the expense, I can broach the subject with the property owner if they'd be interested in listing.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. So is everyone okay with that? I think it's great that people want those awards up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so now Lieutenant, so 2.3 Lieutenant Governor's Ontario Heritage Awards. Oh, go ahead, Thomas.
I think Tammy and I are on the same wavelength here. We just need to note in the minutes that the committee is okay with funding the replacement of that award.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I think is everyone okay with that? Yes.
Is that for another amount of money?
How much?
Yeah.
So yes.
How much do you think it'll be?
Again, I haven't confirmed what the pricing is, but maybe up to 500.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would.
So an expenditure up to approximately 500?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So is that okay,
Thank you.
Thomas and Tammy? Is everyone good? Okay, sorry. 2.3, the Lieutenant Governor's Ontario Heritage Awards.
Yes, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I have a short PowerPoint. Actually, maybe it's kind of long, but I will be brief. But there's a lot of information, and here we go. There we go. you see it?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so the Lieutenant Governor's Ontario Heritage Trust Awards is a bit of a summary. I'll go through it fairly quickly because there's a lot here, but and some of you may have already been on the sites, which I would understand. There are 5 awards, and you'll see them listed here. The award for lifetime achievement, and good news, 4 of the 5 offer for multiple recipients, so means there's lots of opportunity. And in the case of 2019, the award for excellence in conservation, there were 10 recipients awarded, so lots of good opportunity. And the Thomas Simmons Award is the only one where there's 1 award winner or 1 award recipient. So the first one is youth achievement, and you'll notice there's a bit of a preamble here. Only 2 of them have preambles, the others just go right into, you know, who is eligible type of thing. So the one nice thing about the award for youth achievement is also it's sponsored by Canada Life, and they provide a $3,500 scholarship for post-secondary education. So it's really, really great. Just kind of go through who can be nominated. Under 24. Important to note that this has to be for volunteer work. And also also includes conservation activities as well. And you'll see that in some of the other ones. There's lots of opportunity to maybe even partner with our conservation partners to look for opportunities to recognize people in the city of Barrie. So lots of, so who can be nominated, fairly broad, under 24, demonstrating leadership, commitment, creativity, positive impact on the region, province, or good current conservation practices. Who can nominate? This is much broader if you've gone onto the site, but what I wanted to be clear on, given for our purposes, that we can be nominators. So clearly, we are a local heritage organization, in my opinion, so we can do nominations. So I wanted to make that clear that we could be a nominator, amongst others as well. What projects are eligible? So it's a very broad list, as I mentioned, includes environmental service to cultural heritage, natural heritage, environmental organizations, institutions, fundraising, research, writing, promotion, celebration, and preservation of cultural heritage and biological diversity activities that protect, steward, and conserve natural heritage. So a really, really broad capture, which allows us to really, I would think, identify several opportunities to recognize members of our community, youth of our community. The second one is an award for lifetime achievement, and there's no preamble on this one. It goes right to who can be nominated. Again, somebody who's made an exceptional contribution as a volunteer, so that's important, has not received payment, and has to be over 25 years or more of time. So again, and I think we recognize clearly in our community, we have people who would fit that bill of having been a volunteer and over a 25-year or more period, which is a significant commitment. When you think about that, wouldn't those people in our community who put that much time into heritage, would be wonderful to have somebody recognized from our community. Resident of Ontario, again, you'll recognize that demonstrated leadership, commitment, creativity, positive impact in community, region, or province is part of all of these. And interesting enough, this one note I put, posthumous nominations are not eligible. So just important to note that as one of the exclusionary criteria for this. Who can nominate? Again, we can, so that's one, amongst others, but important to note that we can do this as a heritage organization. Eligible projects, again, it's very broad. So I actually just threw the link in there. I'm not going to go to the link, but because there was so much, but I won't go through the whole list. But again, you'll see it's very broad. Municipal heritage committees are included, conservation authorities, land trust, diverse cultural communities, environmental organizations, museum, historical, archaeological sites, fundraising and promotion. So really a really broad cross-section of work that somebody would have contributed to over a body of 25 years. So lots of opportunity there as well. And the next one is the award for community leadership, and who can be nominated. Must be part of a community defined as municipality or regional municipality under the Municipal Act. First Nations band, council, Métis community, council or community located in unorganized territory. Implemented initiatives, programs, or policies, as well as promoted a culture of conservation that demonstrates leadership, commitment. Again, you'll see that line again. Oops. Whoa. Sorry. Who can nominate? That was nominators include again us, so we can nominate again. So sorry, it's that. That's where I was. Oh, sorry, guys.
Okay.
What projects are eligible? Again, a very, very long list. You'll see it bulleted. Natural heritage properties, sites or areas, cultural landscape, heritage conservation districts, artifact collections. So again, a really, really broad fundraising, promotion, educational, interpretive, a really big, broad list for us to really sink our thoughts into. Gosh, my gosh. This is a, apologies guys, this is a, oh my.
Sorry.
Technology, you gotta love it.
Yeah, I'm just barely touching my mouse, so from current slide, it's really, really sensitive. I just barely moved my mouse and it's wanting to go. Thanks. Sorry guys, thanks for your
Okay.
patience.
Awesome presentation.
I went right to the
Summary.
yeah, sorry. Good slide. Okay. I want to go back. I didn't go back far enough. You guys are saints, right? You're patient as all get out.
Of course.
Okay.
Look at all this work.
Yeah. My goodness. Previous. I was at the one, was that this one? I've lost track now where I was. Conservation?
I think you had the page that you were on, Jim, had the link at the bottom.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Really slow. Okay.
There.
There we go.
That's where you were.
Yeah. Next. Okay. So that one, I think that was so award for community leadership. Who can be nominated? I'd covered that one, right?
Yeah.
Nominated. So this was interesting. One of the key things here: nominations must be supported by a motion of council. So that was really an interesting one. And they must submit a complete self-assessment form along with it. So it's a bit more involved, but not necessarily something that we would see as a barrier. Projects, again, it's a really, really, I blew through a bunch there when I was using my mouse. I've taken my mouse off the table here. So again, a really, really long list of, I put in much more at the bottom because it's a very long list. But good news, as we dig into this as a group, we could see where, we're talking industrial, agricultural, natural heritage, cultural landscapes. So really, really a broad list of a menu of options to really look into to recognize again our community. And the next one would be the Award for Excellence in Conservation. Who can be nominated? I just want to make a note here. Must include a project that is located in and benefits Ontario. So this is a broader one, which may or may not be more difficult, but maybe there is something that would be local that we would see that also benefits Ontario. So again, the person has to be resident of Ontario, can be a group, individual, includes corporations, private, public, not-for-profit, those kind of things. So maybe we have a local business that's done something as far as heritage on a grander scale. Can also include volunteer, professional, commercial, academic. So again, a broad award, but also from a provincial perspective as its impact. Who can nominate? Again, we are on that list. It's not just this again, but we are on the list, which is the important thing I wanted to note. Eligible projects, again, a really, really long list that is similar to some of the other ones. Talks about conservation of heritage districts. So that's interesting given some of the work that we've done and looked at here in Barrie. Innovative practice, technologies and approaches. So natural heritage, fundraising again. So many of these are the same. So lots of opportunity to think about what might fit. And there's another page of opportunities as well. This is the full list. Again, oral traditions, expressions, language, performing arts, music, dance. It's really, really broad, and so lots of options again to think about. And the final award is the Thomas Simmons Award for Commitment to Conservation. This is a single recipient. And the Thomas Simmons Award for Commitment to Conservation recognizes an individual who have made defining contributions to heritage conservation throughout their professional careers. Their broad range of heritage activities recognized by this award includes cultural, natural heritage, intangible cultural heritage, sustainability, and biodiversity. So here's the successful candidate must meet the following criteria. They should have exceptional professional contributions to heritage conservation over the course of their career. So this is about somebody who's worked in this business. Be a resident of Ontario, have demonstrated leadership, commitment, creativity, positivity, a positive impact on community, region, or conservation practices. So again, this is somebody who's worked in this area. So who can nominate? Again, we're on that list. Not eligible. I thought that was important to note. Self-nomination, posthumous nominations. Current elected officials, politicians can't nominate themselves. And anybody actually who's got a public appointment, as long as they hold the appointment. So I would assume that as appointed members of the committee, we wouldn't be able to nominate one of our committee members if they were so eligible as far as their career. That's important to note. So I would say in summary, I think this is a great opportunity to recognize contributions made to heritage members of our community. And I'll stop sharing there, and just to say that, I mean, maybe as a recommendation, if we could maybe put a recommendation on the table, I would think that for 2021, pardon me, we missed 2020. I actually sent an email to the Heritage Trust contact on their website, never got a response. I just thought I'd get a little bit of a sense of the 2020 applications and information, but they didn't respond. But you know, for 2021, if we put that on our work plan, that we would, you know, maybe it's a small subgroup that looks at the awards, the 5 awards, and considers, you know, applications for the 2021 Ontario Heritage Trust Awards.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I think it's exciting, and oh, sorry, sorry.
Yeah,
forgot the hand. I think, you know, when just even when we talked about this last month, and I did go through and read through some of the material, in my head, I could think of people and organizations and groups. So I think it's, you know, it would be really great, you know, for us to maybe start creating a list of even who we potentially think might be. You know, just, and then, you know, we might be able to just figure out right off the bat, you know, oh, no, yes, that was a good, but no, they're not really eligible, and go through that criteria too. So yeah, definitely in the work plan for 2021. Excellent. And I think, wasn't it that it had to be done, or Jim, for this year, we just missed, we got this sort of late in the game, right? Like the announcement of this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we did miss the 2020 deadline, and certainly with the amount of work we would have to do. But this is, I think it's a great timing, having an early recognition that this could be something for 2021 that we really want to get into. And so seeing it as an opportunity to be early for 2021. Right. And yeah, I just like you, Kathy, I was thinking, wow, like things like our walking tour guides, what a great heritage resource and piece of work that could be recognized. There's so many opportunities if we really go through these lists. And I went through quickly, and I just respect of everybody's time. And you can all read, so I don't need me to you. But yeah, I would think as a summary, I would, you know, like to maybe if we could. Not feed a motion or not put this on our work plan for 2021 and possibly strike a small working group. And even in that working group, I think we would want to invite and reach out to our conservation colleagues from the Mississauga Valley Conservation Authority and the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority as well, because knowing that there's so many great award potential for those in conservation as well. So I just wanted to make that point as well.
I just want to say thanks for doing that presentation, because it's sort of, there's a lot of information, but you were able to succinctly sort of go through and highlight. And again, a lot of the things were, that's the same sort of idea for all these. So we can, that'll really help us focus on what they're looking for when we make these applications. So that's great. Kathy, did you want to say something?
I just had one comment or question maybe on the one that's for the youth award. You know, I can't think of anything, but I mean, could we, as a heritage committee, can we create something to get youth involved?
We might be surprised. You know, actually, it made me think of a young gentleman who just recently did something with a hall in Midhurst. Now, it's not Barrie,
right?
But probably an example of a young gentleman who made an action to designate an important part of the Midhurst community, which was community hall. So you might be surprised, Kathy, and I haven't really looked into it, and I know you're a lot closer to this work than I am, respectfully, but also with Craig having, being a history teacher, and if you go through some of the award winners from last year from the conservation and from the youth, there could be some youth doing some wonderful work with our conservation authorities. It could, we might be really, really surprised. And even, the play that was done about the war, I forget the name, pardon me, but it was wonderful. I saw it. There might be we might be surprised at what we have with our youth.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's great. I love that. And any other comments or, so I guess, I definitely would suggest that we work this in our plan for next year. And if it's due around November, we have time, but we also don't want to leave it. So to have sort of a little subgroup, I'd be very interested in helping with that. And if anyone else would like to, I think that'd be great. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I think there's people around who really understand our history really, really great. So
we need to recognize them. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for doing that. It was fantastic. Good. So we'll work that into our plan. Do we have to have a motion for that, or I'm not sure. Tammy, do we need to do anything with that, or Thomas, that we can just say that we're going to work on that next year?
I don't think we don't need a motion. We'll just I'll put it in the work plan, and I'll be updating that work plan in December. I'm going to try to get that updated work plan for the December meeting. If not, we'll direct it to the January meeting, and we'll present it there and finalize it.
That's fantastic. Excellent. Okay, so we're good with that. Okay, so now we're on 2.4, status of potential listings to the Municipal Heritage Register. So, Thomas, is that you, or you got another hat on?
That's right. This is, again, me as the committee's staff liaison. And I did confirm that I can share the Cultural Heritage Resource Evaluation for the four city-owned properties, being 151, 155, 157, 161 Bradford Street. So I can share that to the entire committee if the committee is interested, or I can share it with Kathy as she is writing the memo on behalf of the committee. I guess I'm looking for direction from you, Craig, to let me know how does everybody want to see it?
I think if you're going to send it, you might as well send it to everybody. We can all have a look at it. And obviously, Kathy's working on this. I think she worked with Deb on this as well. Yeah, I mean, I think we'd all like to see that. Sure.
Okay, I will do that. I'll share it with the entire committee, and then just wanted to let the committee know that I think I already mentioned this at the previous meeting, but I will be using this to write a staff report as per that council direction about those 4 properties. That's it for me there on that.
Perfect. So that was it for that 2.4.
That's it.
Awesome. That was easy. Okay, 2.5, development application under review, 70 High Street.
Sorry, Craig, I think Kathy's had her hand
Oh,
up there.
Kathy, sorry, Kathy.
I actually, I was going to ask, and it's sort of maybe out of order, but Thomas, is it possible to can you send the committee a copy of your presentation on the official plan?
Through the Vice Chair, Kathy, I think I will defer to Tammy. I will be sending Tammy my copy, a PDF version of my presentation tonight, and I think Tammy will circulate that.
Okay.
Excellent.
And then, also a copy of Jim's presentation.
Yeah.
Out to the committee.
Hi there. I will look after sending that out to you guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Good. Anything else? Sorry about that, Kathy.
No, just
fine. Perfect. Okay, so now we're on 2.5, development application under review, 70 High Street.
That's me again, Vice Chair, and I just wanted to let the committee know that we have just concluded the appeal period for a notice of intention to designate 72 High Street. So I think it's just a typo there. It's not for 70 High Street, it's for 72. As we're doing that repeal and replace of that bylaw to correct the unintentional designation of 70 High Street, and we are redesignating 72 High Street. The deadline for appeals was November 9th, I believe. I have not received any appeals, so I am going to be submitting a staff report through Legistar portal up the chain, and that's going to go ahead for approval, and we'll have the bylaw for that approved at the same time. Sorry, the repeal will be approved at the same time as the new bylaw, and I think that will be either in the December meeting or the January meeting. And that's it for me on that, Vice Chair.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I guess, is there anything anyone else would like to say or add to our meeting? It was a pretty informative meeting, but Kathy?
I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to go to Open Air Dunlop, but the culture department, I think, did some artwork that they have up on the sides of the buildings. And I saw a few of the pictures. They look really great. And I'm just wondering if at some point we can do the same, that same type of thing in terms of getting some art on the sides of walls in the downtown core, similar to what the culture department did. But can we do that with heritage at some point?
Does anyone have, yes, Thomas?
I just would say that if this is something that committee wants to discuss, we would put it on the next committee agenda. Okay. And we can definitely put that even in a work plan for 2021 and discuss it further.
Yeah, excellent. Yes, Kathy?
And when did we are we doing a budget, or when do we do a budget, or did we talk about the budget already? And I know that there's potential for clawing back money from us and not giving us a budget, but do we need to prepare a budget at any point as
we get more money than last year
for 2021, like even for it to go forward, for you to come back and say, sorry, we can only give you $500.
Again, Kathy, sorry, Vice Chair, if I could. Kathy, that would again be something for the next committee meeting for us to discuss. I believe the chair did submit a multi-year budget request last year. So the corporation and the staff are aware of the committee's budget ask, but we can discuss that in more detail at the next committee meeting.
Okay.
Kathy?
And for next month, Thomas, do we know if we're going, the person, the developer is going to come to committee to talk about that building going in beside the museum?
So we'll be putting together the agenda for the next committee meeting in the next couple of weeks. And we
Okay,
anticipate that that would be on that agenda as well.
okay.
Anyone else? Any comments or questions? Okay, I guess there's no deferred items and we're adjourned.
Okay.
So thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody. All right. See you next meeting.
Yep. Good evening,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Maybe